Hello and welcome. In this video and in the next few videos, I'm going to be talking about how to talk to editors and reviewers in our communication with them, particularly in our response letters to them. I want to discuss some principles that I believe will help us when we're communicating with editors and reviewers, will help us to get along with them and hopefully more easily publish. And I want to begin with what I believe is an important principle, and that is that as a scholar, as a researcher, you are not alone. When you write a paper, there's a whole community of other scholars around the world that is connected to you through your research and can help you in three powerful ways to publish your work. And I want to discuss those three ways with you. The first way that another scholar can help you to publish is by supporting you. And sometimes we see this support in polite reviewer comments, encouraging comments to you as the author. But even beyond reviewers, other scholars can help you to publish by saying, 加油, and good luck, and pushing you along. I believe one of the best things that you can do to write more papers is to form a writing support group. This is a group of scholars, maybe at your same level, who get together every week and review each other's writing, comment on each other's writing, and talk about areas to improve and ask you to push more, maybe even ask you to set goals and keep you responsible for your goals. It's so easy for us to tell ourselves, tomorrow I will write, next week I will write. Tomorrow comes, next week comes, and we don't write. But when you have a friend and you tell your friend, I'm going to write next week, and next week he says, did you write? You feel very guilty if you didn't write, and you're more likely to be honest. You're more likely to actually write and to get your paper done. So you might form a little group, and then every week begin your session by reviewing the progress you made on your writing projects, and then set goals for the next week. And then next week when you come together, keep each other honest, keep each other accountable, support each other in continuing to write. The second way that scholars can help each other write is with competitive energy. Sometimes when we compete with another scholar for the most papers or the highest impact factor, we will rise to a new level. So if you don't have friends to support you, maybe you can use a good enemy to motivate you as well. Not a real enemy, but somebody who will push you, compete with you to be better, for higher impact, or for more publications, or for more funding, or whatever the reason is. Third is political energy. Now, I'm going to discuss this a little bit in relation to peer review, because in my experience, high impact researchers are a little bit political. Now, I should explain what I mean by political. I mean they are polite to each other so that other people, other scholars will help them to publish. And this is especially important in a peer review situation. When we write our paper, we must think a little bit about who our reviewer will be, and think a little bit about how we can avoid insulting them unnecessarily or starting to fight them unnecessarily in our own paper. And I'll discuss that in my upcoming slides. But it's also interesting to see some previous research on this topic. One interesting study by Holub and Tappener, they looked at the top journals published across top journals, and they discovered that the top papers in the papers in top journals. And they noticed that papers published in top journals, many of them were zero impact. They were never cited again by anyone, not even the author. And in their paper, they ask, why do we have so many zero impact articles in top journals? And their research suggests that in every domain, there is a group of scholars who know each other, recognize each other's research, and because of their relationships or friendships, suggest acceptance. They suggest saying yes to these research papers. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying go make a lot of friends and write garbage research. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that your research, of course, is most important. Your writing is very important, but there's a third thing to at least consider, and that is that two humans, two reviewers with very human motivation will decide whether you publish or not. And so it's good to keep in mind that this might even be subconscious, that people who like you are more likely to publish you, and people who don't like you may not be as willing to publish you. So the implication of this is, don't criticize your reviewer. Now, who is your reviewer? Let's pause for a moment. Most of the time, many times, your reviewer comes from your own paper, the references in your paper. Editors are very busy. They don't have time to stay up to date with every domain and who is qualified. So many times they will look through the references in your own paper and choose a suitable reviewer from your references. They assume that you know your topic better than they do, and they will use your reviewers, your references, as possible reviewers. So the key point I want to make here is, be careful criticizing your references in your paper when you cite them too strongly. Sometimes I read papers from students in my class, and they begin by saying, Smith's model was stupid, Johnson was an idiot, but my wonderful model will change the world. Now, the problem with criticizing previous references is they could be your reviewers. And since you just criticized them, even subconsciously, your reviewer may be influenced to also criticize you or reject you. And he may not even tell you that's the reason for rejection. He may say, reject, reason, poor English. It's easy to find another reason to reject you. So be nice to your reviewers, and hopefully they will be nice to you. Now, let me give you some examples of potentially offensive citation. References that the reviewer might be offended by. Now, before I show you this, I want you to understand that there are some very mature researchers, scientists, and if you criticize them, they may happily accept your criticism. They may say, thank you, young scholar, for showing me that I am wrong. Accept. That's possible, but it's also possible that some researchers are sensitive, and you criticize their paper, their baby, and they feel naturally defensive about that, and it will be hard for them to overcome this subjective feeling that they have about their paper, even if you're right, and they may find other critiques or criticisms about your paper to recommend rejection. Here are some examples of potentially offensive citation. The deficiency of Smith's approach is, the problems with Smith's papers are, a serious weakness with Smith's argument, however, is that the key problem with Smith's explanation is that it seems that Smith's understanding of the X framework is questionable. Means Smith is a little bit stupid. Now, Smith may not appreciate this, and he may not want all his friends and scholars in his domain knowing about his critical flaws and his serious weakness. So be careful in the way that you critique and criticize other scholars. Now, obviously, you must show a difference between your work and others, but how can you do this in a polite way, in a positive way? Here are some suggestions. Rather than talking about their serious weakness or flaw, rather you could say, Smith's model was effective in the X problem, however in Y. Okay, now I'm not saying that Smith was stupid and I'm smart. I'm saying Smith had a different problem and I could not apply his benefit to my problem. Or the X benefit of Smith's approach is not applicable to Y. Okay, he had a benefit, I could not apply it. You see, this is a nicer way to contrast our work and our research. If possible, we should try to use this more diplomatic, more political approach to criticizing. If you don't believe me that reviewers are sensitive, this is a reviewer comment one of my students had in my laboratory class years ago. And the reviewer says, I don't think you treated Smith fairly in your literature review. His insights deserve more respect. Who is our reviewer? Smith is our reviewer, and he's unhappy that we criticized him. So the student changed the reference to be more positive and give Smith more credit, and Smith accepted the paper. So just understand that there are reviewers who are sensitive, and be aware in the way that you cite them. The way that you cite them doesn't unnecessarily offend one of your reviewers. For more information about how Taiwanese scholars can publish in international journals, visit my blog, editing.tw/blog. I have articles and videos about how Taiwanese scholars can publish more effectively in international journals. I also have editing and translation service for Taiwanese scholars who are preparing manuscripts to publish. And you can visit our site, editing.tw, to find out more about that. Thank you for joining us.